Hey everyone, welcome to Wargaming Parrot. I'm David, I'm joined by my conures, and today's video is all about why conures bite. So in this video we'll be talking about the common reasons for why conures bite. I've tried to cover as many as I can, but there are loads and loads of them. And also I'm going to offer some solutions for them. Again, there's loads of solutions and I wouldn't be able to fit them all in one video, but I'll try and offer as many as I can. Now, while this video is tailored towards conures, many of these tips will apply for many parrot species, so even if you haven't got a conure, it's worth watching this because, as I said, a lot of this will apply to many different types of parrots. Now, I just want to say before I get started that conures are naturally quite nippy and bitey. It's just one of their species traits. Like most parrots, they love to explore their beak. It's just part of their personality. I have loads and loads of videos about conures in general if you want to learn more about them and what they're like and how to look after them. Just have a quick peek through my channel and you'll find absolutely loads of them. Now, my top reason for why conures bite is noise and overstimulation. Conures are exceptionally reactive to noise and it's often overlooked as a cause for biting. For example, we had one client for our business who, whenever she laughed, her conure would start biting her. It wasn't because the conure was reacting to her laughter, it was reacting to the noise level. And this doesn't necessarily mean that every time there's a loud noise that your conure will bite. However, it makes them much more prone to biting. So it's something to be aware of. If your conure is biting, have a look at the circumstances. Are there loud noises involved or anything like that? My next very common cause of conures biting their owners, and this one is very much the same for many parrot species, is sudden movements. Say for example your conure sat on your arm and then you jerk your other hand to grab your mobile, that can suddenly cause a bite. The conure, as far as it's aware, it's just been a sudden movement, it was resting and then they're like, oh my goodness, what's going on? So that can often trigger bites. So it's something to be aware of with your body language and how you're moving around when your conure's out, especially if they're not really used to you and you've just got them, that if you make sudden movements, it can trigger a bite. Now, just like with us humans, if your conure isn't getting enough sleep, they can get cranky. I know if I don't get enough sleep, I get very, very grumpy. It's exactly the same with them. So if they're not getting enough sleep, it could be a reason why they're biting. I know, for example, with our conure Olive, when she wasn't getting much sleep when she first arrived, her routine was all disrupted, she was much more bitey. Now, conures, like all parrots, should be getting a minimum of 12 hours sleep. Generally, you want to be doing between 12 and 14 hours sleep for them. And it tends to need to be uninterrupted as well. I know it's may not be possible with every lifestyle, but if you can aim for it, it may help reduce the biting. Leading on from my previous point about sleep is hormones. Hormones is one of the top triggers for biting in all parrot species, and conures are no exception. So if your conure is hormonal, for example, because it's the season, or they're not getting enough sleep, or their diet's slightly wrong, there's so many triggers for hormones. Sophie has an excellent video on that, which I'll leave a card for now. It can cause excessive biting behaviour, so it's something to be aware of. If you can manage hormones, you may help to curb any excessive biting. My next common cause for conures biting is stress and boredom. Now, I've rolled these two into one because one usually leads to the other. So with boredom, if there's not enough toys, if they're not very stimulated, they're much more likely to bite, purely because they don't know what else to do, so they're just doing what they can do to get a reaction and have fun. And the same with stress. If they're stressed because they've just come into your home or you've made changes, that could also trigger biting behaviour because they're unsure of their environment, they're unsure what's going on, so they lash out and go from 0 to 100 instead of giving you any warning signs. Another commonly overlooked reason for biting is diet. Now, me and Sophie believe that diet plays a massive factor in many parrot behaviour problems. So you should look at your parrot's diet. Is it all seed? Is it high fat? Is it high sugar, like a sugared pellet? You need to look at these factors because if they've got lots of sugar and fat, it will lead to hormonal behaviour, it will lead to excess energy, and it will lead to biting and naughty behaviour. Now, at this point I left for later on because I felt it was important to cover other ones, but this one's very, very important, and that's misreading body language. Conures, like most other animals, will show you signs that they're about to bite you. So it's very important to be aware of their body language. For example, Olive, if she's uncomfortable, she'll sort of turn her head, she'll start biting her toes. Other conures will have other signs that they're uncomfortable. So if you misread their body language, then they're showing you that they're going to bite you and they're uncomfortable. So if you're not paying attention to that, of course you're going to get bitten. It happens to all of us. So being observant of body language is very important and may save you some biting in the future. Another common cause for biting, especially in rescues, is past mistreatment and a lack of trust. So for example, if you have a rescue and they've been mistreated in the past or just been locked in a cage, they will have a lack of trust in you and they will just go straight to biting because they know there's no point doing anything else. If they don't want something, they're just going to bite because all their body language will be ignored. So this is something you have to work through with them and just be aware of, that a rescue conure may be more likely to bite purely because of past trauma. Another cause, there's lots of them for conure biting, is accidental reinforcement. So say for example you're training with a conure and they're just getting overexcited and overstimulated, but you think it's funny or you think it's cute, or they bite down a target stick too hard but you think it's fine. You reinforce that behaviour, especially with target stick example. If they bite that target stick hard and you give them a nice treat for that, they're going to think, I need to bite hard to get that reinforcement. Same if they're acting up and being naughty and you start laughing, giving lots of attention, that is accidentally reinforcing overstimulation and biting behaviour. So you need to be aware of what reinforcement you're giving to your conure and if that's reinforcing the right kinds of behaviour. So one more cause I'd like to add as well is stopping your conure doing what they want. Now, it's just like with a kid. For example, with Scampy, if he wants to go on my neck and he wants to bite my chain, if I stop him from doing that, he's going to get angry at me and he's going to get petulant. So if you want to stop them from doing something, have an action plan. For example, use a treat to lure them away, then reinforce the calm behaviour, or do not show a reaction, put them in a neutral location. But if you're going to stop your conure doing certain things, they may lash out or act up. So I've talked about the many causes of conure biting, and there are loads of them. So I want to talk about some of the solutions. Now, with some of the causes, the solution is kind of obvious. For example, changing diet or increasing sleep. But there are some things you can do. I can't cover them all, I'm afraid, because there's just so many of them, and some of them are dependent on the individual conure. So if the tips in this video don't work, you could consider booking a consultation or reaching out to us. We will try and help. However, in saying that, there are some common solutions to it which I'd like to go through now, which may help you with your conures biting. So my first tip for reducing biting, and it's kind of an obvious one, is keeping your movements slow and deliberate, especially during training, especially during interactions, especially during the early stages when you're working with them. Keep the movement slow and deliberate, keep your voice soft and quiet. It worked wonders with Scampy in his initial training, and it's very important. My next tip, and this is something that's overlooked by so many parrot owners, is establishing what the most reinforcing treat is. It will save you a world of hassle during training and when you're trying to stop your conure biting you, knowing what the most reinforcing treat is. I've got a video on treat hierarchy, which I'll leave a card for now, which will be very well worth watching. But if you can establish that most reinforcing treat, you can get them to perform a behaviour instead of biting you. You can sort of extinguish that biting behaviour by getting them to do a spin or all sorts of other things, which will just reduce the chance of them biting and also make your training so much easier. My next tip for reducing biting is training. Training is so important. Not only does it provide mental stimulation and strengthen your bond with your bird, it also provides you a tool to distract them and to redirect them from biting behaviour. I would especially recommend target training. I've got a video on that which I'll leave a card for now. Target training is exceptionally useful because not only can you redirect the behaviour, you can also target them to safe areas. You can also target them away from, say for example, if they're biting your neck, you can target them down your arm for a reward. And it's just, there's so many applications for it. It's just such a useful skill, and I think it's just every bird owner or parrot owner should know targeting and apply it with their bird. Leading on from this is something called soft targeting. Now, soft targeting is basically using your target stick but encouraging your parrot to bite it very softly. So for example, if you have your parrot is targeting, biting a little bit hard, you hold that target stick at an extreme distance. This means your parrot has to reach a little bit further and has to touch it very softly. This encourages soft biting. So if your parrot is getting nippy, they won't bite as hard because they're used to biting more softly and getting reinforced for it. So you're basically training them to bite less hard, and it's just so useful. We applied soft targeting techniques with Olive, who was a rescue and was exceptionally prone to biting and very hard. She'd often break the skin. So we used soft targeting with her, and while she still does occasionally nip like all conures, the bite force is nowhere near, and it seldom breaks the skin now unless she's either very nervous or very agitated. So do try soft targeting. Again, just to repeat how it works, you use your normal targeting technique, but you make sure that you hold the target stick at a further distance and only ever reinforce if your conure bites or licks the target stick softly. Now, if you're really struggling and you need extra help, do feel free to reach out to our business. I'll leave a link in the description for you. We just launched a lovely new website. But in the meantime, guys, thank you very much for watching. I hope you found this video very useful, and the tips in it will be useful. I know I couldn't cover every single tip for preventing biting, but I tried to cover as many as I can. So from me, pickles and scampi has flown off. Thanks for watching and take care.